Hi, everybody. Welcome to Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. Pete is ready for the people to come around his house because crazy things have been happening, not only in Halloween, but in all of Philadelphia. The Eagles are 7-0. We'll talk about that. You know how we do the show, 4 quarters and overtime. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, we break the huddle, the first quarter. The Eagles, 35-13 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are in 7-7. My favorite nugget out of that game among many, the Eagles are second in the league in 3 and outs. So considering how that defense was maligned last year, what an improvement. That's what I've seen. Pete, what about you?
I'm seeing Jalen Hurts, the maturity in Jalen Hurts. Obviously he's been good this season, but I'm starting to see that he definitely worked on some kind of mechanical issues over the offseason because he looks different. His ball is different. His deep balls are different. Even his medium to short throws are just different, which gives me a lot of confidence in him, that he's just not relying on what got him here as his intangibles, basically. Obviously, we know he did a lot of work in the offseason because he looks a lot better this season. But yeah, the mechanics really stuck out to me. His mechanics just look very different to last season, even a little bit different than the beginning of the season. So it just gives me a lot more confidence in him. I've been pretty critical of him since he started as a quarterback here. And I just said, I hope I'm wrong. I just want to see him improve and become a passer. And I'm really starting to see that. And I'll eat my words anytime. It's good for the Eagles. So, I mean, I'm really starting to see that he is working on his mechanics and he's becoming a complete passer.
You know, those passes he threw to A.J. Brown into a tight window, with some decent coverage at some point shows, some of the subtlety and nuance he has. Yeah. And how about you, Bill? What are the nuggets that came out for you watching the Eagles go 7-0?
Well, actually, if we're talking about Jalen Hurts, he has now won 10 consecutive games as a NFL starter, not playoffs. We're talking regular season games. And that's an Eagles franchise record and as well as a current NFL streak. No current NFL starter has won 10 consecutive regular season games. And he just looks like magic out there. I mean, he has so many weapons. Some weeks it's Devontae Smith, other weeks it's A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders. Sometimes Jalen Hurts just runs it in himself. And he even got Zach Pasquale involved in the scoring this week, which is nice to see because, Zach is he's a number 3 wide receiver. And, he's the first Eagle to throw 4 touchdowns in a game with 0 interceptions and a quarterback rating of 125 or better since some guy, Nick Foles, did it in November 2013. You guys remember Nick Foles? I think he did something that we'll always remember.
What was that MVP in the Super Bowl? Was that guy?
That guy. So, but I have an unbelievable Gelman's Gold this week. Thanks to the Eagles for putting out their notes this week. It takes me back to 1969 before some of us were even around. The 4 touchdowns that Jalen Hurts threw, they for 25 yards or more. And according to Elias Sports, Jalen Hurts is the first Eagles quarterback to record 4 touchdown passes in a game of 25 yards or more since Norm Snead did it in 1969 against none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow. How about that? A Gelman's Gold and a tieback to the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow. That was really something. That's a great Gelman's Gold nugget. Now, what did you think watching all of this unfold? You didn't know about all those stats yet, but there is something about this team. They came off a layoff and they had their swagger.
Yeah, they just look like just unstoppable. I mean, it's just like, I mean, there's some games, yes, they got tight in the end, but they just look like a team where everything's clicking. They're not settling for, sometimes you go 7-0 and you say, you take take a step back and like, no one can catch up to us, because if you look at the NFC, you still have the Vikings, Giants, and Cowboys as the only teams that really look like they're contenders this year, legitimate contenders. And the Eagles aren't letting it get to their head. They're still, granted, Pittsburgh's one of the worst teams in the NFL this season, but at the same time, the Eagles didn't let up. I mean, they pretty much controlled that game from beginning to end, and where all facets of the game really, really worked. I'm sure Nick Sirianni found some things to point out, because you got a short week this week. You got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday they go to Houston. Thursday night they play.
All right, we'll take a look at that and more about the Eagles in the second quarter. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. The Eagles are not only the only unbeaten team in the NFL, but they are setting records for what's expected of them. And they go in to Houston this week as a huge favorite, double digits. 13 points was the latest we saw. We did see that once before when Tampa Bay was favored by that much and they lost. So, Pete, I'll throw that to you with that backdrop and the dominance factor. What are you looking for out of the Eagles Thursday as they oppose the Houston Texans on this short week?
I'm looking for more of the same. I'm looking for the run game to get a little bit going. A little more this game. You saw what Derrick Henry just did to Houston. Houston's defense is bad. I just feel, I know it's a short week, but I just feel they should be continuing to dominate these bad teams. The Eagles are a top team. Some people say they're the best team in the league, and as the best team in the league, they shouldn't even give these teams a chance. They should act as if these teams don't even deserve to be on the same field as them. And that's how the Patriots and the Tampa Bay and the Green Bay, that's how they've done for all those years when they were dominating. And I don't want to see a close game against these bad teams. Even if they get the win, I want to see them just to keep dominating and keep the pedal on the metal, keep their foots on their necks. And I think if they do that and they just keep playing as if they're hungry, and I think everything will be fine. Like Bill said earlier when we were talking, the complacency, we can't keep up with that. Like, there can't be any complacency with this team. I don't think there will be. I think there's enough veterans on the team to kind of keep the young guys in check. Like, we didn't win anything yet. I think a lot of those guys are saying that. And you see with Jalen Hurts in the post-game interviews. You see that with a couple of the players and Nick Sirianni, basically like, this is great. We're gonna enjoy it, but we haven't won anything yet. And I think if they keep that mentality up, I think they'll continue dominating and take that into the later part of the schedule.
How about you, Bill?
Yeah, I pretty much agree 100% with Pete. I mean, this is what I touched on last week, the cupcake schedule. But you can't, just, go up and say it's a cupcake game. You have to jump out by 2-3 touchdowns early, take out their confidence. I mean, the game is in Houston. It's on national TV. So that should motivate Houston. They just don't have the talent to match up with the Eagles. This is like a NFL team, NFL Super Bowl contender versus a team from one of those, USFL or XFL, one of those leagues. That's where the Houston Texans should be playing right now. They don't score a lot of points. I think they have like 116 for the season, which is less points than the Eagles have scored in the second quarter. And they're not a talented team. A couple good drafts, maybe there'll be a team that's not laughed about, but the Eagles should just, don't even wait till the second quarter. Score two or three touchdowns and a field goal, and then in the first quarter, just dominate. Show them why. 13 points. That's a road 13-point favorite as a road team, not a home team. Mm-hmm. So that's
that is amazing. And what happens to weak teams is when they hit that moment, and they can't get over the wall emotionally, you'll see a sag back. Now, Houston had been beaten by the Raiders 38-20, and they had the lead in the fourth quarter, and then they just imploded. And against Tennessee, Pete, you were talking about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had to be used that much because the Titans didn't have their quarterback. Ryan Tannehill determined to be sick the day before, so they had a backup quarterback, and against the worst run defense in the league, Houston gave up 219 yards and lost. Well, what happens with Jalen Hurts, who is a real quarterback coming into this situation? How do you see this in terms of a game plan? Do you see more Hurts, or do you see more ground game in this matchup? I'll each of you guys weigh in on that idea. Pete, we'll start with you on that.
I see them maybe airing it out in the beginning, kind of taking the confidence out of any confidence Houston has, taking that home field out of the equation, taking the fans out of the game, air it out, kill their hopes, and then just kind of run the game away from that, literally with Miles Sanders, control the clock, and just keep scoring and keep their defense off the field. And
I would pretty much agree with that. And hey, maybe even get Quez Watkins in the game plan this week, because they're going to be covering everyone else. Quez Watkins will just be standing alone, looking at his watch, maybe texting someone during the game, and still be wide open to catch the ball. I know they don't have phones during the game, but this would be a nice week to get Quez Watkins in, because it's. You see, AJ Brown was covered in the end zone yesterday, and he had no trouble catching those balls. So it's I would like to see everyone get involved in the offense, and I would like to see a little more from Kenny Gainwell as well. He really hasn't been involved yet, because it's always good to have that two or three options in the run game. Miles Sanders has been great, but it's I would like to see a balanced running attack along with the great passing game that they showed the other day against Pittsburgh.
I disagree with Bill, because I have AJ Brown and Miles Sanders both on my fantasy team, so I don't want them to get involved. Just keep laying it up to AJ.
Well,
Brown.
you must have run the score up yesterday, Pete.
I had a good week. Yeah, I had a good week.
Wow. Yeah, I talked about it on the Eagles.com for you.
I had McCaffrey too.
What's that?
I have McCaffrey too in one of my. I'm on a few teams, but one team I have McCaffrey and AJ
You must
Brown.
have set scoring records yesterday. We talked about in the Eagles.com story about that they would. It was time for him to air it out. It was a game in which he could go deep, and that did play out. Maybe not for Watkins, but also the Eagles combining for more than 13.5 points in the second quarter of a game. That's been a given all year, and that bet paid out yesterday. So people who took the Eagles game over 13.5 in the second quarter, and for Jalen Hurts to get more than 1.5 touchdowns, also put money in their pockets. He doubled it. You can't get the bet twice, but he did double it. So a big week for the Eagles, and we will look at more in the third quarter. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why, NFC East Power Points. Could not help but notice in the Washington Commanders game, this visual wrestling match at the 1-yard line, end of the game. Terry McLaurin of Washington pulls the ball away from an Indianapolis defender, and that sets up the Taylor Heineke touchdown sneak in Washington's 17-16 win. I'm watching these guys fight for the ball, thinking the spread was 3.5 points. They're battling over the spread because Indianapolis was up 6. They're battling over the game because it's at the 1-yard line, and all of this going back and forth on one play. And it was just, to me, this interesting visual. Washington wins the game, and they're now 4-4. They've won 3 in a row. So that's my NFC East impact point. How about you, Pete?
My impact point is the Dallas Cowboys and how Tony Pollard looked at running back. I think everybody, fans of the Cowboys, not fans of the Cowboys, the players in the locker room, the coaches, I know they all feel the same way, that Zeke should not be the number 1 running back on that team. He is done. I mean, he looks old. He looks beat up. Pollard looks fresh. He's explosive. It's just a different vibe when he comes in. You think you're waiting for something big to happen. He's a good running back, and he proved it with the game on his back, on his own. Basically, he proved once again that he should be the featured back. I don't think anybody is arguing that point except one guy, the most important guy, Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry Jones still saying Zeke is their number one running back. He's still saying we go as Zeke goes, which doesn't make sense because he just played one of their best offensive games without Zeke. And he's doing all this because he doesn't want to admit that he shouldn't have given Zeke all that money. And that's when it comes down to. And it's just another part of how Jerry Jones is holding his team back. And I'm not complaining. I hope Jerry Jones lives till he's 125 years old and keeps the ownership, because he has held his team back for many years just because of his pride and certain things. So yeah, if they want to keep Tony Pollard at number 2 on that depth chart, I'll let them do it. But Tony Pollard is the future, and Zeke should be the one sitting on the bench on that team. But I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue if he wants to keep Zeke out there as long as he can.
Kind of like when they gave Carson Wentz all that money. Well, we're obligated now to make him a star. And Carson Wentz is now hurt. And Taylor Heineke, his replacement, is doing well for Washington. Bill, what is your NFC East impact point?
Yeah, I think it's keep an eye on those Giants, not because they lost to Seattle yesterday. Maybe they came back to earth, but because you look ahead a little bit, and after their bye week this week, they have Houston, Detroit, and then they have a tough stretch of 4 games in a row, with games at Dallas, home against Washington, home against Philadelphia, and then on the road against Washington, and then on the road at Minnesota. Wow. So it's Giants are not on the Eagles level, but we keep talking about them because they surprised us, so far with this point in the season. I think the division is still going to come down to that Eagles-Dallas game. Just not so much. I don't even know if the division will be on the line at that point. But it just, I don't know if any of these other games are really going to matter. And I can't help but think, this is a bigger picture, NFL. When do we start talking that the possibility of the Eagles going 17-0 this season?
Well, that was my next question to both of you, Bill. You led right into it.
I was reading your mind.
Do you think that Eagles-Dallas game might be for the unbeaten season on December 24th? That's projecting a little bit ahead, but it is fun to think about. And then I bring up this FanDuel bet that I made back in the second week of the year, that their first loss would happen against the Packers on November 27th. So that was back in week 2, and I got 14-1 odds. I might have to take another shot at that bet and go deeper, because now all of a sudden the Packers look like that. But what do you think? You guys, just for fun, yakking about this here, do you think the Eagles will be trying to protect an unbeaten season when they play Dallas on December 24th?
I think so. I think the Cowboys game or the Packers game, because the Packers still have Aaron Rodgers, and I know they don't look good. He doesn't look like himself, but I think they're going to be better by that time. I can't see them continuing to go downhill. Aaron Rodgers is working with his new crew of wide receivers that he's using. Devontae Adams. He needs to, once he starts getting a little bit of chemistry, like you said, Dave, when we talked earlier, and that I think it's going to be those 2 games that really come down to the 17-0 season, unless they totally have a letdown game, which we haven't seen any signs of it yet. I mean, the letdown game I thought was going to be maybe Arizona, or the Washington game when they played in Washington. I can't see them even getting close to losing to them in Washington. And then you have the Giants. I mean, are the Giants for real? You know what I mean? So it could be. Anytime there's a division game, you could always have a dogfight, and then the Giants have surprised us all season. So yeah, I'll throw the Giants in there too in that mix. It could be one of those 3 teams if it happens.
Bill, when you think about this and you're having fun projecting, You think the Eagles in Dallas on December 24th will be for them trying to protect an unbeaten season?
I think it's a very strong possibility. I think the Arizona game was a wake-up call of sorts, just because it came down to the wire. And the Eagles should have won that game handily, because Arizona did not have their top wide receiver for that game, DeAndre Hopkins. And beginning of the season, like the bet you made in week 2, it's like the Packers on Sunday Night Football. That seemed like the scary game. So we keep touching on, the fact that, will Green Bay improve? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be better? Because you never rule out Aaron Rodgers completely, but the Packers just look like a second-tier team this year. And, how can you not go for the undefeated season if it's still intact against Dallas and then against the Giants? So maybe they can wrap up an undefeated season in the final week of the season by playing their starters for a half. Because usually if you're heading to the playoffs, you rest the starters the final week of the regular season. But hey, if undefeated season's on the line, how can you?
How can you indeed? Only been done twice in the regular season. The Miami Dolphins in 1972 and the New England Patriots in 2007. But then the Giants ruined their dreams in the Super Bowl.
That's one giant loss.
What's that?
That counts as one giant loss.
One giant loss indeed, Bill. Well said, and gargantuan for them too, because, hey, we've never seen anybody get back to that point. More in the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Sign of the times. What is radically different this year? What strikes me is Aaron Rodgers getting 10.5 points. He had double-digit points for the first time in his life. Guy's been in the league a long time. He was a double-digit underdog when the Packers met the Bills on Sunday night, and he needed every bit of it. They did cover the spread, but lost by 10. But you're giving 10 points to Aaron Rodgers, and he needs it. That's a sign of the times. How about you, Bill? What's a sign of the times?
A Rams-Buccaneers game that doesn't seem to carry the same weight that it was originally projected to have at the beginning of the season. Both teams have losing records. And like I've touched on previous episodes, the Rams are not playing like a Super Bowl team. But neither team is out of their division race. I mean, the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons are 4-4 with Marcus Mariota as their quarterback. And the Buccaneers at 3-5, I believe, they're not out of the race. So, but at the same time, we're already up to week 9. We're almost, with 18-week season, technically this is the midpoint of the season. So it's the time to really show whether or not you're for real. Matthew Stafford, I don't know what happened to the Rams offense, and Cooper Kupp, I believe, got hurt yesterday.
So I don't know. Game he did, yeah.
So I don't know what his story is if he's not in the game. That puts Rams in a tougher spot because they're on the road. So it'd be interesting to see, because I'm sure this is going to be the game of the week for Fox. So it'll be interesting to see the spotlight between these two teams that they start showing. I know Tom Brady was dealing with some personal stuff. So I don't know, maybe the distraction, he can move on from the distraction. So we'll see, but it's the fact that game, the beginning of the season, that looked like a potential NFC conference championship game. And now, you look at it, neither of those teams might not make it to the conference championship game or possibly even make the playoffs.
They might be sitting in the stands watching the playoffs together. Who knows? Both teams have gone down quite a bit. How about you, Pete? The sign of the times. What are you picking up that's different than last year?
Last year and beyond, actually. Miami Dolphins were usually a team at the bottom of the league in standings, and it was just like a fun place for a lot of teams to go to and play, and then like a little vacation for them. But that's not the case anymore. They're 5-3. They got their their starting and possibly their franchise quarterback back, and he showed why they have such confidence in him. Came back this week and totally just got down a little bit, and an older Miami team, you'd be like, game's over, turn it off. But this Miami team, you got to keep it on because they have so much firepower on offense, and they showed what they can do with that firepower. And I think that's definitely a change of the times because, like I said, Miami, for the longest time, they've never really been that serious of a team. I don't even know their stats the last 10 years, but they've always been kind of like a weaker team with a little bit of potential. You had Tannehill. They thought maybe he was the next guy. That didn't work out. But Tua seems like to be the guy to kind of take them into that next level and change the times. And with that offense, they're young, they're fast, they're hungry, and they're showing why they are the next up and coming AFC team.
Keep an eye on this. The Miami Dolphins, when Tua starts and finishes a game, because he was hurt, when he starts and finishes a game, they are 5-0. So keep an eye on those Dolphins. Indeed, things are different. We'll have an overtime segment straight ahead. It's the overtime segment. What pops out at you? You might hear a dog barking to take the underdogs this week. I say keep an eye on the second quarter of the Eagles game. They continue to dominate and pay off inside that second quarter. Pete, how about you?
I'm going to do, even though I lost last week, the Jets let me down. I'm not going to do it with the Jets this week for Pete's pick. I'm going looking at the Miami Dolphins, Chicago Bears team. Miami Dolphins is giving 4.5. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always tease it down a little bit. I'm comfortable with the 4.5. I think the Dolphins are just a different team without Tua. I mean, with Tua, sorry. No, without him too. But yeah, so I think the Dolphins, I think they can beat the Bears for more than a touchdown. And a little special prediction. By the time this airs, we're going to know. So the Phillies, they're at the time of recording, they'll be playing tonight, game 3 in Philly. I've been saying all series that they're going to win in 5. People can call me crazy, but I'm going to stick with it. Phillies in 5.
They won't be calling you crazy if you're right about this one. How about you, Bill? What pops out in overtime?
Well, I just came to a realization. We have 3 big Philadelphia sports stories this week. One is the potential of the Phillies winning the World Series. I agree with Pete. I think that the Phillies, they've been unstoppable at home this postseason. So let's see how it plays out. I think no matter what happens, the Phillies have had a great season. Of course, I would love to see them win the World Series, and I think they will. But it's these next few days are going to be very tense. You have the Eagles, who are probably going to win some crazy score, 35-10 on Thursday night. The Texans might just score a touchdown late in the game just because the Eagles will be, looking ahead to the next game. And then you have forget about the Philadelphia Union. They're playing for the MLS championship next weekend. Let's not ignore them.
All right. Well, don't forget the mayor on this show last week. The mayor said it was Houston week. So we'll see how this week plays out for Mayor Gelman. Well, that's our program. We thank you for joining us. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. And it is a great time to be a fan and a bettor in Philadelphia. For Pete Amato, for Bill Gelman, this is Dave Bontempo saying thanks for joining us. And remember to hit like and subscribe for future videos.